Hello there. What's going on, everyone? Today we're talking about X-Wing. We're talking about X-Wing in a post-big announcement world. That is that AMG and Asmodee have announced that X-Wing miniatures game is ceasing development. This and Armada also, both they are ceasing development on these games. And while they're still technically supported throughout Worlds of 2025, so next March, that does seem to be the end of support. And these games will basically sunset at that point, although many have sort of said that they have sunsetted as of last week, which isn't exactly true, but we're going to talk about that a little bit and where do we go from here. This one is going to focus a lot more on X-Wing. There's going to be some things that it has in common with Armada, but since the two games are in sort of different places, I wanted to use this opportunity to talk a little bit about X-Wing and focus on this. And there will be a follow-up video talking about where do we go from here from an Armada standpoint, because they're slightly different situations between the two games. So again, all the typical admin stuff. Also, if you are interested, we still have a $25 Amazon gift card giveaway going on. You just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. It's as simple as that. And yeah, I'd love for you to join our Discord, social media links. All this stuff is going to be down in the video description below. All right, so there are a couple of initial ways to go. All right, things to do, ways to process this. I think for a lot of veteran players who have collections that they've invested a lot of money in, that they're very worried. Like, did I waste my money? And first off, I want to say I don't think you did, because if you've been enjoying the game, then you certainly haven't wasted it. But also, you bought tangible goods when you bought these games. These are pre-painted miniatures that are amazing. I've made the analogy once before about how when you bought like Micro Machines, you're buying these awesome collectibles, and you didn't, their enjoyment wasn't dependent upon future waves coming out. Now, this also had a gameplay and much better quality miniatures than Micro Machines were, so you're kind of getting even better stuff, and and that might be cold comfort for somebody who really doesn't care about the toy factor of them, but it is nice because they make excellent display pieces. You can always put them on your desk, and you can always continue to keep playing. And that is my first point here, is that you can always continue to keep playing as long as you have people to play with. And I think that that's an important thing for a lot of people to remind them, as well as let your communities know that you plan to keep playing. Tell other people that you plan to keep playing. Find out who else plans to keep playing. Get involved on meetups and bulletin boards at your FLGSs, and on Facebook and different Discords and different groups, and get, you might have to get a little more active. It may not be, it'll probably be fine for right now, but a couple years from now, it may be a little more difficult to find play groups. So it might require you to do a little bit of effort and work, but you will still be able to play. There is also, we live in a great age where if a game gets shut down or whatever, there's still Tabletop Simulator, Vassal, and of course Fly Casual. Great, awesome app that you can use to kind of play a hodgepodge version of X-Wing that's pretty close to the current AMG version of, like, the current 2.5 version of X-Wing. It's missing a few things, but it's pretty close to being there. And there's just a lot of really great ways to play. A lot of people play on TTS, and so it's going to be a lot easier than ever to find somebody to play with. Now, granted, that may not be the physical tabletop version. You may be playing it digitally across the internet, but you can still play, and that's a very cool thing as well. So my first point is, gameplay continues as long as you continue to play. But for people who want more, there are definitely some ideas on where to go in the future. Because, again, if production's being stopped, that's going to be a problem. There's bigger problems than production being, or new product development being stopped, but reprints is a bigger problem, because it's going to be impossible to get stuff at a certain point. Like gunboats, for example. Will Schick just confirmed that even though those were announced, they will not come out. They're not moving forward with gunboats and phantoms and other things that they had planned. So that's kind of discouraging. I think there were some people holding out hope that perhaps that could still happen. And so it doesn't look like that's happening. So let's talk a little bit more about the future, because there are Um, there's a lot of community efforts to keep X-Wing going past Worlds 2025 and to possible, 2026 seasons of competitive organized play events and beyond. And that's, of course, where it definitely gets tricky because, in order to have organized play, I think a community has to be organized. And in order to be organized, you need people on the same sheet of music. And there are currently different competing standards, I guess I would say, maybe competing with an asterisk, because it remains to be seen how much they're really going to be competing. But there are different approaches to community guidance going forward with X-Wing. I'm not going to name drop any of them right now because I want there to be some longevity. I'm going to talk more in loose terms because I think existing people in Discords and that are following along with X-Wing right now probably are very familiar with the groups. But basically, from what I've gathered, and I'm not like too deep into this, but I've got my finger on the pulse, that there are basically, the community's been split, and it's not just split two ways. There's multiple different ways. There's various different rule sets, but rule sets that are still using community rule sets that are still playing in 1.0, community rule sets that are playing a version of 2.0, and then community rule sets that are looking to be more in a 2.5. And there's even community rule sets that have the huge ship points, on the Yet Another Squad Builder app. So, so there's various different little, I guess, different levels of, I don't want to call it homebrew, but I guess it is kind of homebrew. I guess community brew, right? Maybe as a word. I don't know if even that's a term that we're using, but I'm going to just use it for this video. There's different competing standards, and from what I can see, there's one standard is emerging that has a large number of high-profile community leaders and content creators and individuals, well-known folks that are uniting behind an effort to sort of usher X-Wing into a future era. And then on the other side of the coin, there is another very popular effort that has kind of using an older rule set, like a 2.0 hybrid rule set. And while this one still does have some names behind it, it doesn't maybe necessarily have quite the star power behind it. But what it does have is it has this I guess the time on its side, because this effort has been going on for a while, because I believe it's still based on the kind of where FFG did the handoff to AMG, kind of using that 2.0 rule set with a little bit of the FFG stuff. And the reason I'm not name dropping these is I'm still learning more and more about them, and I don't want to necessarily endorse something or sway the community towards one particular rule set or another. I'm not actually involved, not heavily at least, outside of like some very, very light conversations, in either of these competing standards. There's also 1.0 stuff, and I don't think that comes as a huge surprise to many, but I don't expect 1.0 to be the way the future goes. Now, I call these competing standards, but with an asterisk, because there's certainly the chance that they may end up finding common ground and uniting, and it just being, maybe that would be the best case. And maybe something like that will happen, or there may be not a compromise, and I think that would be problematic. So I guess my hope is that whatever the future does hold, and there's no rush, by the way, but whatever the future does hold, that it does involve the community as a whole uniting behind a standard, and whatever that standard may be. And that doesn't mean that it has to have homebrew or community brew. It could be the official rule set as it is now moving forward into forever. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be, but I think it's best for players as a whole, for people to unite behind, for everyone to unite behind the same standard. Doesn't mean you can't still have homebrew and little offshoots, but they need to be kind of known to be those homebrew and offshoots. It kind of hurts if you have multiple competing standards, because then there's just, you get this balkanization of the X-Wing community, and then it really hurts for somebody who is either a new player joining, in 2025 or 2026 or whatever, and that can join and pick up a box from at a flea market or at a Barnes and Noble, or something like that, and try to go online and learn more about this game and just be really confused with all the different rule sets that are out there. That is definitely, I think, maybe the worst case scenario. But I think another, talking about worst case scenarios, I think that's one of, or the fact that that maybe there's no community effort going forward, and then nobody's playing online. I think that's completely unrealistic, though, because I think this game engine is way too popular to just be completely forgotten and go away once Worlds of next year happens, and presumably, if it keeps going that track, support completely ends, and the doors are closed forever. Some people think it's that way already, and it's not. But I'm going to get into that in just a minute. So, in summary, there are multiple kind of talking/competing asterisk standards that are, and I believe everybody's still talking about it and stuff like that. So my goal, if I have any say in it, is hopefully everybody unites under the same thing and we can all come together, and it'll make it a lot easier for me to talk about X-Wing and whatever ends up happening in the future. I think I'd love to be a part of promoting something that can unite everybody under the same banner. That's one of the reasons why I'm not naming names right now for specific names of this homebrew or that homebrew or this initiative or that initiative or this community brew or whatever, because if it ends up not being the standard, I don't want to point people in the wrong direction just yet. But keep in mind that if something is unanimously decided upon, then that would be great, and I'd love to be at least an echo chamber for, echo chamber is probably the wrong word. A sounding board, maybe, for pushing that forward. But we'll be looking into it, and hopefully that can happen. I'm really hoping we don't have a community divided in half, because that would be rough. Although you could make the argument that the community is already divided and possibly more than in half. And that's not necessarily even AMG's fault. I think that's just something that's happened going back to X-Wing 1.0, and then every rules change that's happened along the way. And X-Wing has seen its fair share of highs and lows over the years. We tend to look back at the Fantasy Flight days as the glory days. I definitely think my golden age of X-Wing was probably around wave 4 and 5. Before Scum and Villainy, well, maybe around when Scum and Villainy first came out, but before we had like the Jump Masters coming in and going crazy. And this is a very off-the-cuff video. I'm kind of just, talking from the heart. I don't really have a script, so I had some things I want to talk about, but I'm, very easy to get carried away in this, and there'll be plenty more of that, I'm sure. But let's go into, let's get to a couple of other things that I did want to talk about. I want to, basically talk about what happens now, because I think the community council or community initiatives or whatever the united standard is going to be moving forward doesn't have to happen right away. I said before, there's no rush for this, so let me expand upon this part. Worlds of 2025 is a key moment in the future of X-Wing, and this is a big thing. Worlds of 2025 is still going to be run by AMG. AMG is still supporting X-Wing, even though a lot of people say it's no longer supported. No, technically, development has stopped, and that's an important distinction. It means the game is still supported with organized play, store tournaments, GTs, and grand tournaments, and the Worlds in 2025. So that means you've got like 9 months of continued support for this game, with the one distinction that there won't be new product coming out, or reprints. There won't be physical product coming out. And that's definitely, that's a huge bummer. I'm not trying to sugarcoat it, but I am trying to make that distinction. And there's a reason for this distinction. It's not just like, oh, guys, it's not so bad. No, it's not great, for sure. But the reason for this distinction is that we don't want a community standard to take over now, because then you'll show up to Worlds with homebrew or some new rule set or something like that, and you may not have a legal list for Worlds. We want everybody to be playing the same game come Worlds 2025. It's important that that is clear. Adepticon and AMG aren't going to, host competing versions of X-Wing. It's not like Adepticon's gonna be like, oh, we're gonna run Homebrew 23 for Worlds this year, and AMG will be like, oh, okay, you can just run whatever you want. No, they still have a licensing agreement with Lucasfilms, and they're not gonna throw that away. So for now, continue to play X-Wing the way it is. And doesn't mean you can't also keep an eye to the future, because again, things typically take time, but because we have so many months, almost a whole year between now and Worlds, I don't think there's any rush to immediately decide on what the future standard is going to be. So with all that being said, there's plenty to look forward to as far as tournaments, but obviously not the stuff that we wanted to see, not those new ships that are coming out. I do think, now this is going past 2025 and 2026. I do think that there will be another space-based game. So if you really are a big fans of Atomic Mass Games or different Asmodee studios, I think that somebody under Asmodee will be coming out with a space-based game. They've talked at length about how the cost of miniatures, pre-printed, pre-assembled, pre-painted miniatures are through the roof. Will Schick even said they would lose money in a recent interview if they were to continue making these, and I wonder if that's entirely accurate, because there are other pre-painted games and other pre-painted studios releasing stuff constantly. Star Trek Into the Unknown, made by former FFG and X-Wing developers, is coming out. I just talked about this in a video yesterday. That's all pre-painted, pre-assembled. It's very interesting. A friend of mine, Harry Nick, also is back to making content again. A great YouTuber, done a lot of X-Wing stuff. Also mentioned Star Trek Into the Unknown in his one of his more recent videos. And I have to agree with him that it sounds a little like I want to call shenanigans on that particular talking point. And it could very well be, Harry Nick said that maybe WizKids is taking a loss on Star Trek Into the Unknown up front because they just want to get a new game system started and they hope to make it up in the expansions and extra content. And that could be, but I don't think so. I don't think you do that in today's economy. I think it boils down to the factories. And I think Atomic Mass Games would have probably needed to go with a cheaper factory, which might have meant more like different molds. It could be if you switch factories, or if you're trying to go for a cheaper production method but still keep it X-Wing, you might have had to turn down the quality a little bit, and maybe that was a bridge they weren't willing to cross. That's, I think, probably a more realistic thing. But it would be bad PR to say that, because if they came out and said, well, we could keep X-Wing going, but we just have to turn the resolution on the models down a little bit, and that might make us as a company look bad, so we're going to just cancel the game instead. Like, that would sound really bad. Of course, that's me just making up one possible use case. That's obviously not what AMG has said. That's me just projecting. I can envision a lot of different scenarios that could have caused this, but I also have good reason to believe that they really never wanted to make any new ships from the day that they got this. There's been multiple folks that have told me, and who will remain nameless, that day one of this whole handover, the mindset and the talk from the top over at AMG was that no, we will never be making any pre-painted ships for X-Wing or Armada. The only chance it would be is if they were on a sprue. And from what I can understand, the polling numbers or the quick estimates of if they changed the game over to be on a sprue were abysmal, and it was like, no, it's probably best to just cut our losses and axe the game at this point. That's my rough estimate based on how things may have turned out. But that's neither here nor there. It doesn't matter. We can't control that. It's in the past. No point really dwelling on it. So let's get back to the point of the video, is where do we go from here? There are multiple competing standards. Hopefully they'll all join together, continue to play the game the way the game is, and you have plenty of opportunities to keep playing the game in your local stores. There are lots of tournaments that are going to be happening this year. There's grand tournaments, there's store tournaments, and there are worlds to prep for at Adepticon. This is next year. It is going to use the same AMG certified rules. So you're not going to be able to get away with a 2.0 or 1.0 or some kind of hybrid rules. You're not going to be able to get away with that outside of just homebrew circles or your smaller sub communities. And I kind of worry a little bit if there's too many sub communities that are gaming, because I'd hate for like local X-Wing. We used to have local X-Wing night here in Orlando, and well, I mean, I'm sure some people still do. I used to attend a local X-Wing night. Is probably a better way for me to say it. And it stinks when like people stop showing up. And it would really be a shame if, like, you know, somebody goes up to their local X-Wing night and there's like nobody else there because, you know, or maybe there's only like 3 people there and it used to be 12 every Friday or every Sunday or whatever. And people are breaking off into smaller subgroups and then running out of opponents, running out of people to play, you know, because, again, people are very tribal with different homebrew rule sets. So I think it is important that we all come together with some sort of united standard. I will admit that I am not a big fan of all of the AMG rules changes, but it's going to be really tricky. It seems like one of the biggest things that people are divided over is what rule set to use moving forward, because there are certain things like I'll talk about road, right? Random order after dice, or whatever that road stands for. But basically who goes first, the getting rid of bids, and a lot of that aspect of the 2.5 rule set was a big divider for the X-Wing community. And the problem is it's hard to go back, because to go back to it is going to appease, it's going to satisfy half of the player base, and it's going to, you know, vilify the other half, right? It's going to make people very, very angry on one side. But to not go back makes the other half happy and the other half angry. So and to try to find middle ground, there doesn't seem to be a really good middle ground. But most middle ground compromises annoy everybody, but in a different way. So there are definitely some challenges that that communities are talking about right now. I am glad that I don't have to make these decisions. I will do my best to support whatever the unanimous sort of hoping there is a unanimous, and I'm saying that because I'm optimistic that the community will come together. I don't think it benefits the community to have 7 or 8 different versions of X-Wing out there. I think it benefits the community to have one version of X-Wing that is the prime, the standard, and then if they want to have a couple of like smaller, unofficial homebrew things, like people still playing 1.0, then nothing wrong with that. But at least you're not expecting to see 1.0 at Worlds, right? And really where this goes to is Worlds 2026 ? If there's going to be a Worlds in 2026, and there very well may be, although it will almost certainly not be AMG taking part in it. Although anything could change between now and then. So that's why I say almost certainly. But as of right now, that's not the plan, right? But who knows? Things can happen. Lots of strange things can happen. But yeah, let's look towards a possible Worlds 2026 that is, that the community is going to go to. That's not going to be an AMG. How would that work? And that's really where we need united community, because we can't have people showing up to Worlds and everybody's got like 3D printed 3D printed ships may absolutely be a thing that has to happen. And I think that's another thing that the community has to decide on. At what point will we allow 3D printed ships and printed cards and not require the actual real physical product, because they're not making it anymore? So do we want to allow gunboat, or are you just going to ban everything that gets sold out? So that's, I think 3D printed stuff is going to have to be allowed after Worlds 2025, and it's a shame it won't be allowed before, because again, if stuff is already scarce, obviously gunboats were intended and Phantoms were intended to be reprinted, so they were intended to be made legal and standard. It's a shame that we can't get those. So I would hope that the community will allow proxied ships at a certain point, as long as they're leave it up to a TO, like, yeah, okay, you can run this as a gunboat, but you can't run an X-Wing as a gunboat, or something like that. It has to be something that looks like a gunboat, but this is, again, these are questions for the community, and I hope that they'll be able to figure those out. Now, there is also another reason to stay on the official rule set until Rules 2025, and it is possibly the chance that AMG might release another points update or some kind of balance tweaks. There is certainly a remote possibility. I say remote because I kind of don't think that they will. Kind of don't think that they will, especially with the whole gunboat. There's no, we killed that and we shut it down. I don't think they just shut it down today. I think it's probably been shut down a while ago because it was supposed to have been out, by now, considering how long ago it was announced. So I think it was shut down a while back. So I think that they've known this was coming for a while and just had to wait for the right moment to say something about it. But there is a chance that they do have some balances and some things that are like digitally done with points or whatever, that could potentially be released, and that could be soon. Now it would be awkward for them to release it right before Worlds, or at least within like 3 months leading up to Worlds, but it is possible it could still be released this year, or potentially right after Worlds. AMG sometimes likes to release stuff right after Worlds. I feel like right now we're in a position where it's close enough to the end of the previous Worlds that there'd be plenty of time to get a whole new season of competitive organized play in with a points change. And hopefully they'll do that. I think that'd be a better way to send off the game with some extra content. That's how FFG would always end their games. Every time FFG had to shut down a game, and again, it has happened before, and it's always a really bad and sad time. They have tried to send these games off with a better fanfare than AMG has. So a couple of examples. The Star Wars customizable card game, not customizable, the living card game. Star Wars LCG got basically, hey, this will be the final set that is coming out. They had plenty of time of notice. This is going to be the last set, and then we will have a Last Worlds after that. Imperial Assault was told that there would be a Last Worlds. I don't think Imperial Assault got anything extra, but it's still in print. A big one was the Star Wars Destiny. Destiny was told, hey, this set that's coming out in 3 months or whatever it was is going to be the last set of Star Wars Destiny. But in addition to that, here's also a print and play set. This is the next one that we had kind of planned for. You guys can have this. This was our work. We didn't get to send it to print, but you guys can have it. If you want to use this, you can. And I thought that was a really cool way to go. And that's what I hope for, but I don't honestly expect. So it's always cool to have a little bit of hope. It's always cool to have a little bit, even though people, some of you may very well disagree with that. Some of you people was like, no, let me just start my grieving now. I don't want to have any more hope, and I can understand that. That's why I'm not going to paint it as a very real possibility, but it's something to keep your mind open to, because AMG might do that. They could. And if you jump on board into a new homebrew rule set community, especially with community created content and community adjusted points and all that stuff, it drastically would have a big problem if AMG says, okay, here's our balance change. Here's our final balance pass with tweaks and points adjustments. Boom. And then that whole community effort has to start all over again, because ideally a community should start from where AMG leaves the game, and then they should start from there. It's a little harder to get everybody to buy in if a community effort starts, and ignores like the last year or two of AMG's stuff, because most people have been playing using the AMG rule set. So that's why I'm just, suggesting we focus on the core rules, the AMG rule set, the 2.5 rule set, prep for Worlds and this Grand Tournament season now using the existing rules. And hopefully by when the time comes, the community will be united and ready to steer us towards a 2026 season and beyond. So looking forward to that. We'll see what happens, and I'll bring you news as I get it. And I think that's where we go from here. Let's keep playing. Not a whole lot has changed in reality. I know for a lot of folks, this is been a big shock. It's been a shock to me that they ended it so abruptly and with like so little fanfare. But it has. That's the shock. And not the shock that they're not making new stuff, because I didn't think they were really ever going to make any new ships. But I thought for sure they would have made some more card packs or something eventually, or at least kept going with reprints and huge ship points and all these things that they had said they were going to do. But yeah, it's. I think the Armada player in me also has a different perspective because our game has officially or unofficially, kind of unofficially, been mostly dead for a couple of years, for like 3 years now. And so we're like, we've been around this block before, coming back with like, oh, you told us it was dead, so we already planned for that. But oh, here's like 5 new cards. Here's a tiny little points update. Oh, okay, that's great. That'll keep us going for another year or two. And so we've been able to live on table scraps, expecting that our game was dead. So this news for Armada has been very, very different, because it's like, oh, good, you finally said the quiet part out loud. Thank you. And so having being a fan of multiple different game systems, and of course the Legion community is all like thinking, are we next? And I mean, next as in when, not anytime soon. Legion's got a really, really big roadmap ahead of it right now. But who knows? Anything can happen. Although I don't think anything will happen. I think very specific things are going to happen, and what we need to focus on is what we know. So that's all we can really do. It's all we really know is the things that we know. And 2025 Worlds will be run by AMG, and we'll be using those official rules. So that's what we should focus on for right now, and hopefully the community comes together. Okay, I think I've repeated myself a number of times. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me today. Thanks for talking with me. If you've been talking to your screen, then thanks for shouting at your phone and or tablet and or laptop. Thank you for shouting at your device. And tell me, how is your day going? Okay, awesome. Glad to hear it. All right, that's going to do it. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. I hope you have a fantastic time. Enjoy playing. I will talk to you guys soon. May the force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes. Big thanks to my patrons. You guys are amazing. And always wash your socks.